Montana Territory. Spring of 1882. The train hissed into the tiny station at Elk Hollow like it hated to stop, and Rowena Vaughn felt her stomach twist tighter with each clank of its wheels. She clutched the worn handle of her carpetbag and stepped down onto the hard-packed dirt, blinking against the wind that swept across the valley. Her heart beat fast beneath her plain brown traveling coat. She knew they would see her, and they would think what they always did. Too plain. She was 23, with clear skin, a narrow face, and eyes the color of river slate. Her brown hair was pulled into a tight bun beneath her bonnet. No curves to catch a man's eye, no shine or flutter. But she had come anyway, a mail-order bride. She scanned the platform. One man was there, tall and lean, leaning against a fence post with his hat tipped low over his eyes. He wore a dark vest, dusty trousers, boots with spurs, and a holstered revolver at his hip. When he looked up and their eyes met, her breath caught. He blinked once, then straightened, pushing off the fence like he had been struck by something sudden. A few long strides brought him to her. "Miss Vaughn." His voice was deep, with a rasp like wind through pine. "Yes, I am Zachary Tilson. I wrote to you." She nodded, trying not to fidget. "I remember." He looked at her, really looked, and his jaw did something strange, like it tensed and softened all at once. Then, before she could say anything more, he said it. "I would like to marry you. Right now, if you are willing." Rowena stared. You have not even asked if I had a good trip." He gave a slow nod. "Did you?" She blinked fast, lips parted. "Yes. Good." He took off his hat, revealing thick dark hair and eyes that were a quiet, warm green. "Then I will ask again. Will you marry me?" She looked around. The platform was empty now, the wind tugging at her coat. "You do not even know what I am like." "I know enough," he said simply. "You came all this way to live in a place like this. That tells me about your heart. I read every word you wrote. You think you are too plain for a man to want, but I have never seen anything as steady and real as you." Her lips parted. "No one had ever. I do not need to wait," he added. "I know." And somehow so did she. They were married that afternoon in the small clapboard church on the hill, with the preacher's wife as witness. Zachary's hand was warm in hers, strong and sure, and Rowena felt something inside her shift like ice cracking under spring sun. After, he lifted her down from the chapel steps like she was porcelain and placed her gently in the wagon seat beside him. "I do not expect anything," he said quietly as they rode. "Not until you are ready." She looked up at him. "Why did you really write for a bride?" He did not answer right away. Then he said, "Because it was too quiet out here, and I was tired of talking to ghosts." His land was wide, tucked into the crook of low hills, with a red barn and a small but solid house. Inside, everything smelled of pine and smoke. He gave her the bedroom and took the cot by the stove. By the third day, she had unpacked her books and mended the torn curtains. By the fifth, she had baked bread and found the old rocking chair out back beneath a tarp. And by the seventh day, she had seen something that made her heart ache. She had gone looking for him near the barn and found him sitting behind it, crouched low in the straw, holding a small boy older than 5 against his chest. The child had dark hair and pale skin, eyes shut tight. Zachary rocked him slowly, murmuring something too soft to hear. Rowena stepped back, but the boy stirred and looked up. "Papa." Zachary stroked his head. "Right here, Zeke. You are all right?" The boy clung to him tighter. "Mama's not coming back." "No," Zachary said. "She is not." Rowena's heart cracked. She turned and walked away before they saw her. That night, Zachary came to her at the stove while she was washing dishes. "I meant to tell you, Zeke is mine. His mother passed 3 winters ago." She turned to look at him. "You did not think that mattered in your letter?" He shook his head. "I figured it would scare you off." "It does not," she said. His shoulders lowered, like he had been bracing for a blow that never came. "Where is his sister?" Zachary's mouth pressed into a line. "Zadie. She is 7. She ran off 2 days before you arrived. I have searched every trail and cabin from here to Bridger." Rowena's chest went tight. You did not say anything. I thought it would be too much. I thought maybe. I did not want to lose you two. She stared at him, heart-thudding. You think I would leave with a child missing? He looked at her then, something raw in his eyes. I do not know what kind of woman you are yet. Well, she said, drying her hands. You are about to find out. They rode out together the next morning, following faint tracks through the scrub. Zeke stayed with the neighbor's wife. Rowena sat straight in the saddle, watching the hills for any sign of a girl with dark braids and a stubborn streak like her father's. By noon, they found her tucked in a hollow behind a rock outcrop, her face streaked with tears and dust. She was clutching a doll with no arms. Zachary jumped down. Zadie, no, she cried, backing up. You brought a new mother. I saw her. You do not love Mama anymore. He froze. Rowena stepped down and walked toward the girl alone. I am not here to take your mother's place, she said gently, but I am here to help your father. And you? Zadie looked at her through narrowed eyes. Rowena knelt. I lost my own parents. When I was 10. I know what it feels like to miss someone so bad it makes your chest hurt. But running away does not fix it. Zadie's lip trembled. You are not pretty. Rowena blinked. No. I suppose I am not. Zadie looked at her a long moment, then whispered, good. Zachary picked her up, holding her tight. The girl sobbed into his shirt and Rowena looked away, blinking hard. That night, Zadie and Zeke curled up on a blanket by the fire. Zachary leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. You are good with them, he said. Rowena sat at the table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. They are easy to love. He looked at her, eyes steady. So are you. She stood. Zachary. But he crossed the room in 2 steps and took her hand. I meant what I said. I knew from the first moment. I never expected someone like you, but I am grateful every second. Her breath caught. She looked up into his face and saw no doubt there. Just quiet, steady warmth. I would like to kiss you, he said. She nodded once. He did soft and slow, like he was asking again with every breath. When she kissed him back, his hand cupped her cheek, and she felt her knees weaken. For the first time in years, Rowena did not feel plain. She felt seen, wanted, loved. The morning after Zadie came home, Rowena stood beside the wash basin in the yard, sleeves rolled, wringing out linen stiff with spring wind. Chickens scratched in the dirt behind her, and smoke from the chimney curled steady into a pale sky. She worked in silence, jaw set, eyes focused until the screen door creaked open and Zachary stepped out with a folded blanket under one arm. You don't have to do all the wash, he said, coming down the steps. We usually let the wind knock the dirt loose. Rowena didn't pause. I'd rather do it by hand. It gives me time to think. He set the blanket on the fence rail and leaned beside it, watching her. You always need something to keep your hands busy? I found it helps, she said, twisting the last cloth tight. Stillness makes the past too loud. Zachary didn't answer right away. Then he rubbed the back of his neck, eyes on the ground. Zadie asked if you were going to stay. And what did you tell her? I said I'd already asked you to. Rowena rinsed her hands in the basin. Children don't care what's been said. They watch what's lived. Zachary's gaze lifted. And what are you living, Rowena? She looked down at her fingers in the water. Something honest, I hope. He nodded once, slow. Would you come with me this afternoon? I need to move some cattle off the south pasture. It's too wet down there and one of the calves is limping. She wiped her hands on her apron. If you've a horse that doesn't mind a rider with poor balance, I'll come. I've got a gelding that never hurries. He'll suit you fine. They rode out after the midday meal. Zeke stayed behind with the neighbor boy and Zadie sat on the porch step with a slate, drawing crooked houses in the dust. Rowena didn't speak much as they rode, but she felt the way the sun warmed her spine through her shawl and how Zachary kept his mount slowed to match her rhythm. When they reached the pasture low in the valley bend, she dismounted slowly, grounding herself on the grass. The herd moved quiet among the willows, tails flicking, ears twitching. Zachary pointed to a red calf limping near the stream. She slipped in last week. Caught her leg on a root. It's healing, but she favors it. Rowena approached slow, voice low. Her hand brushed the calf's shoulder as she crouched. You splinted her? Wrapped it with pine slats and cloth. Didn't have a better way? She nodded, running her palm down the calf's flank. It's clean. No heat. She'll be fine. He watched her a long moment. You've done this before. I lived with a cousin once who kept goats. Most were half wild, but some let me tend them. He smiled with his mouth, but not his eyes. You always speak like you're holding something back. I don't mean to. Then what is it? She stood, brushing her skirts. I was raised to be useful, not seen. That sort of thing settles into a person. Zachary stepped closer, reins loose in his hand. You're seen now. She looked at him, steady. Do you see me because you're lonely? Or because you truly want to? His jaw tightened, not out of anger but care. I've been alone before. It makes a man quiet, not blind. She felt the words settle deep. Then she nodded once and turned toward the horses. They rode back through the long grass, the wind rising. Near the house, clouds gathered low over the mountains and the air took on the sharp scent of coming rain. As they reached the barn, Zadie ran out, cheeks flushed. Papa, the creek's rising. I saw branches floating. Zachary swung down. Zeke still with the neighbors? She nodded. Good. Rowena, can you help me pull the tools from the lower shed? If the water crests again, it'll be underwater by nightfall. Without a word, she dismounted and followed. They worked fast, stacking crates and crates of harness leather, hand tools, and seed sacks into the wagon. Mud slicked the grass beneath their boots, and by the time they were done, her hair clung damp at her neck. Thunder rolled low. Zachary pulled the shed door shut and turned. You didn't flinch, he said quietly. Rowena looked at him. I've had storms worse than this. I don't mean the weather. She met his eyes then, and something moved between them, slow, certain, like a green shoot pushing up through frost-hardened earth. He stepped forward, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. You could rest now if you wanted. I'm not tired, she whispered. He kissed her again, deeper this time, with the scent of rain in the air and the wind tugging at their clothes. Her fingers curled into the front of his shirt and he wrapped his arms around her like he'd known exactly how she would fit. When they pulled apart, the first drops began to fall. Zachary rested his forehead to hers. Come inside. We'll keep the lamp burning high. Let the storm pass around us. She followed him back to the house, hand in his, and didn't let go. The rain had eased by dawn, leaving the soil soft and the sky a dull pewter gray. Chickens pecked through the wet ground behind the barn and would smoke curled from the chimney well before sunrise. Inside, Rowena stood at the stove, sleeves rolled, stirring cornmeal into a bubbling pot. Her hair was still damp at the ends, a strand slipping free near her temple. Zachary entered quietly, boots damp, shirt sleeves pushed to his elbows. He set a bundle of split kindling near the hearth without a word. She glanced at him. You always rise before the light? He scratched at his jaw. Habit from cattle drives. Never did lose it. She ladled the mush into 2 bowls, set them on the table. Zadie's still asleep. I checked. He sat, hands rough around the spoon. She'll come round to you in time. I'm not rushing her, Rowena said. You don't rush anything. He lifted his spoon. You measure your way through a room like it's got secrets. She met his gaze. Some rooms do. He nodded, quiet settling between them as they ate. The roof ticked softly as water dripped from the eaves. After breakfast, she pulled on her boots and headed toward the garden plot beside the house. The fence was leaning where the wind had pushed against it and several rows of young shoots had flattened under the weight of the rain. She knelt carefully, dirt cold beneath her knees, and began reshaping the soil around the roots. Zachary came up behind her, wiping his hands on a rag. You've got dirt on your chin. She brushed at it, but he leaned down and wiped it himself with the edge of his sleeve. You always fix what you can? He asked. If I don't, who will? He looked over the fence line. I ordered more seed through the mercantile. Should arrive next week. I'll make space, she said, straightening. And build a stake line for the beans. You planning to stay long enough to see them grow? She didn't answer at first. Then, I've never had a patch of dirt that was mine to tend. Not really. It's hard to walk away from something like that. He stepped closer, voice low. I want you to stay. But I need you to want it too. I want a life that doesn't require pretending, she said. I want to go to bed knowing no one expects me to be softer or shinier than I am. Zachary didn't blink. You've got that here. She nodded once. Then I'll stay. That afternoon, while Zadie played near the creek under Rowena's watch, Zachary rode into town for supplies. It was the first time he'd left them alone together, and Rowena didn't miss the way his eyes lingered on his daughter before he mounted. Zadie kept her distance at first, crouched near the water with a flat stone in her palm. Rowena sat on a fallen log, mending a tear in Zeke's shirt. You don't talk much, Zadie said, not looking up. I talk when I've got something worth saying. Zadie tossed a stone into the current. You gonna make us call you Ma? No, why not? Because your mother's name deserves to stay yours alone. The girl was quiet a long moment. You know how to fish? Well enough. Papa doesn't. He always says he's got better things to do. Rowena set the shirt aside. Then we'll fish. Just us. Zadie turned her head slightly. You don't look like the kind of woman who knows how to fish. You don't look like the kind of girl who climbs trees in a dress. Zadie grinned, then caught herself and looked away. Rowena didn't press it. She returned to her sewing, thread pulling smooth through the fabric. By the time Zachary returned, the sun was dipping behind the pines. He stepped down from the wagon, arms full of burlap sacks and a wrapped parcel tucked under one elbow. He handed it to Rowena with a quiet nod. She peeled back the brown paper to find a pair of leather gloves, fine-stitched, the fingers small enough to fit her hands. They're for working, he said, not for show. She ran her fingers over the seams. They'll last. I want to build something with you, he said, voice low. Not just a house. A way forward. She looked at him, her voice steady. Then let's get to work. The following week brought sun that baked the damp from the fields, and with it came the kind of quiet labor Rowena found steadier than thought. She rose early, tied back her hair, and worked beside Zachary and the children without needing to ask what was needed. She had learned the slope of the land, now the way the creek curved south and the wind slipped down from the ridgeline, and she moved through it like someone who belonged. Zachary was mending fence posts along the western boundary when he paused and looked toward the horizon. There's a rider, he said, one hand shading his eyes. Rowena stepped into the yard, drying her hands on her apron. The figure on horseback was still a ways off, following the trail from town. Dust rose behind the hooves. Zadie watched from the porch, arms looped around her knees. I'm guessing that's Elijah Turn, Zachary said. He handles most of the land records. I'd asked him about a parcel west of the ridge. Rowena nodded but kept her eyes on the rider. When the man drew up to the gate, his horse lathered and restless, his expression wasn't one of business. You Zachary Tilson? The man asked, voice tight with dust. I am. There's trouble near the timberline. A boy from the Harlan place went missing. His folks think he wandered off yesterday afternoon. Zachary's jaw set. How old? 6. They've been combing the woods since dawn. Thought you might lend a hand. Zachary nodded once. Tie your horse and come in for water. We'll ride out in 10 minutes. Rowena didn't speak until the door closed behind the rider. Then she faced Zachary squarely. You going? I have to. She nodded. You'll need food. And a lantern. He paused. There's no promise I'll be back by nightfall. I know. He took a step closer. Zeke's still at the neighbors. Zadie. She stays with me. Zachary held her gaze. This is the sort of thing I used to face alone. Rowena reached for the satchel on the hook by the door. You don't anymore. He left within the hour, riding hard with the others who'd gathered at the trailhead. Rowena watched from the porch until they vanished into the trees, then turned and found Zadie by the hearth, pulling thread through a scrap of cloth. You worried he won't come back? Zadie asked. Rowena knelt beside her. I'm thinking about the boy and his mother. Zadie's hands stilled. I wouldn't want to be her. No, Rowena said softly. No one would. They passed the day in quiet tasks. Rowena kept the fire steady, baked flatbread, and walked the fence line near dusk to check for signs of coyote. Zadie followed without being asked, holding a stick and tapping it against her palm. As they reached the pasture's edge, the girl spoke again. "You ever lose someone?" Rowena didn't glance over. "Yes." "Was it bad?" "Yes." Zadie looked down at her boots. "I used to think if I stayed angry, Mama would come back. Like maybe if I didn't let anyone else in, she'd know I was waiting." Rowena crouched beside a bent post and tested the wire. "That sounds like love to me." Zadie didn't answer. The sun dipped behind the ridge and the wind turned cold. They returned to the house and Rowena lit the lamp and stirred the stew she'd left simmering. The silence between them had changed less like a wall, more like a hallway waiting to be walked. That night, Zadie unrolled her blanket beside Rowena's bed instead of the hearth. She didn't say why and Rowena didn't ask. It was deep into the night when Rowena heard the horses. She rose, pulled on her shawl, and stepped out into the chill. Zachary led the boy's father up the path, both of them streaked with mud and pine needles. The boy, barefoot, wrapped in a blanket, clung to his father's neck. Zachary's eyes found hers in the dark. He was caught between two fallen trees. "Cold but alive." Rowena nodded once. "Zadie's asleep near my bed." He looked past her toward the door. "And you? I'm glad you're whole." He stepped forward, close enough that their breath met between them. "There were hours I thought we'd find a body instead. But you didn't." "No." She reached up, touched the side of his face where a scratch ran along his cheekbone. "You'll need salve. I'll take whatever you give." Later, after the horse was stabled and the stew warmed, they stood in the kitchen with only the lamp between them. Zachary leaned back against the table, shoulders lowered now. "You're not what I expected," he said. Rowena met his gaze. "I wasn't sent to be expected." He reached for her hand. "I don't wake up wondering if you'll vanish. That's new." She stepped closer. "I don't build things I don't plan to keep." He kissed her then, quiet and certain, like someone who'd learned the worth of things earned slowly. When they parted, the lamp flickered, and outside, the wind had stilled. He didn't ask her to stay the night in his bed. He didn't have to. She took his hand and led him there herself. The first warm rain of May coaxed green from the hills, and with it came things that had been waiting to grow. The garden sprouted in neat rows, peas curling upward along the stakes Rowena had set by hand. The barn roof no longer leaked, and the pasture fence held firm where Zachary had reinforced the corner posts with new cedar. Mornings began with the soft clatter of dishes and ended with quiet talk beneath the low lamp glow. It was a rhythm that asked nothing but presence. One afternoon, Rowena stood at the table with a length of muslin under her needle, the fabric stretched taut across her lap. Zadie sat across from her, tongue poking from the corner of her mouth as she copied letters onto a slate. Outside, Zeke's laughter carried from the yard where he played with a wooden horse Zachary had carved from scrap pine. Zadie didn't look up. "You ever teach anyone before?" "No," Rowena said, "but I always wanted to." Zadie tapped her slate. "I already know how to read most things." "Then I'll teach you how to write them better," she said. "And maybe a bit of arithmetic if that doesn't scare you off." Zadie shrugged. "Papa says numbers keep a place running." Rowena nodded. "That's true. But words keep it remembered." Zachary pushed open the door, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I just got word from the post rider. The circuit judge is coming through Bridger next week." Rowena set her needle aside. "You still planning to file the land claim?" He leaned against the doorframe. "I am. That west parcel's good ground. Best chance we've got to expand the grazing come fall." Zadie looked between them. "What does that mean?" Rowena met Zachary's eyes. "It means your father's thinking ahead." Zachary crossed the room and pulled a folded sheet from his pocket. "It also means I'll need a legal witness to the marriage." The one in Elk Hollow was done proper but not recorded through the circuit. Rowena blinked. "You didn't tell me. I didn't want to rush you. But I want it on paper now. You deserve to be named right." She looked down at the muslin in her lap. "Then I'll go with you." They rode into Bridger early that Thursday with Zadie and Zeke left in care of the neighbor's wife. The town was busier than usual, tents pitched outside the livery and a string of wagons lining the south road. The judge, a thin man with a sharp nose and a deep voice, sat under a canvas awning, boots propped on a chest. He took Zachary's papers without ceremony, then nodded toward Rowena. "You the bride?" She stepped forward. "I am." He looked her over once, then dipped his pen. "Name for the record?" "Rowena Vaughn Tilson." The judge paused. "You want that last part written?" She met Zachary's gaze. "Yes, I do." They signed beside each other, ink still wet when she felt Zachary's hand slip into hers beneath the table. Outside, the sun had begun its slow drop westward. They walked the edge of the square, past booths selling seed packets and bolts of cloth. A woman with a fiddle played near the dry goods store, the notes winding through the dust like something half-remembered. Rowena paused beside a crate of books. The bindings were faded, titles barely legible. Zachary picked one up, thumbed the edge. "You miss reading more than letters, don't you?" She brushed a hand over the spine of a poetry volume. "I used to read by candlelight until my eyes hurt." He passed her the book. "Then start again." She looked up. "We don't need we do," he said. "We need things that feed us." They rode home with the book wrapped in cloth and a bag of penny nails tucked beside it. The wagon creaked as they crossed the ridge, and below, the house stood solid and waiting. That night, after the children were asleep, Rowena sat beside the fire with the book open in her lap. Zachary sat across from her, boots off, shirt sleeves rolled. She read aloud. The words were soft but steady, filling the space between them. When she finished the page, she looked up. Zachary's voice was low. "I never thought hearing someone read would feel like coming home. I never thought I'd be the one reading." He came to her then, knelt beside her chair, and took her hands in his. "The first time I saw you," he said, "I thought I was just grateful. But it's more than that. It's like I'd been walking with half a heart and didn't know it." She touched his cheek. "I didn't know a place could feel like a person. Until now." He kissed her, and it was quiet and full, like breath after a long run. She leaned into him, and the fire crackled soft. That summer, the garden bloomed beyond what they'd hoped. The beans climbed high, and the corn came in thick. Rowena taught Zadie to sew a straight hem and Zeke how to hold a pencil. Zachary built a second coop behind the barn and fixed the roof on the chicken shed before the first frost. There were hard days, too. A coyote got into the henhouse one night. Zadie fell from the orchard ladder and scraped her knee raw. Zeke caught a fever that had them sitting up for 2 nights straight, cool cloths on his brow. But through it all, they stood together, arms linked not by duty, but by choice. One autumn morning, as leaves gathered in drifts along the fence line, Rowena stood in the doorway holding a slip of paper. Her fingers trembled slightly, though the words were clear. She turned to Zachary, who was oiling the harness near the window. "It's from my uncle's widow," she said. "She'd like to send her youngest to stay with us. He's 12, bright but wild. There's no work for him where they are." Zachary looked up, face unreadable. "What do you want?" "I want to give him a roof. A place to learn. A family." Zachary nodded once. "Then we'll make room." Rowena smiled, eyes warm. "You don't even hesitate." "I've got what I need," he said. "The rest is just more to share." That night, as the first frost silvered the grass, they stood out beneath the stars. The children were asleep, and the house behind them glowed with lamp light and quiet breath. Zachary wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting atop her head. "I used to think peace was something you got once the world stopped taking things from you," he said. Rowena leaned back into him. "And now? Now I think it's what you build with what's left." She turned to face him. "Then let's keep building." And they did. Through the winters and the planting seasons, with letters sent and answered, with new boots for growing feet and books passed from hand to hand, with days of hard work and nights of warm hands and soft breath. They built it all. Together.